Welcome to the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears, and today's conversation is about it's not always who you're with, it's who's watching. This is a principle, it's a rule that I teach in the fitness industry, especially with trainers, whenever they've got to develop. We in life often have a narrowing of our perspective of things. We get like what they call blinders, right? We get focused and fixated on something specific, and we start losing awareness to other things going on in our life and to what else is going on around us. So, as the example, whenever it comes to it's not always who you're with, it's who's watching. In the fitness industry, it is people do what they call floor pulls or working the floor. And this is where like a trainer or director will go out to the floor in the gym and interact with people to see if they can find people who would be interested in working with them. Now, when they're doing it, it becomes, especially for the more immature of the trainers, and what I mean is professionally immature. It's nothing against them. A lot of times you find this in people that typically they're just not trained and developed into how to do these things in a tactful way. So what they do is they'll go out and they get very fixated on the opportunity to sell somebody. And they're really trying to push the opportunity into somebody else's world instead of bringing somebody into their world and seeing possibilities about how to achieve their fitness goals and health goals that have to do with fitness and movement. They go into their world like a battering ram, and they are trying to figure out a leverage point to sell. Blinders, right? And what happens is that it's not always who they're with, it's who's watching. So it's about the other guests. If they're putting somebody through a workout, then it's about what other people can see as well. If they're working with somebody who is a client, and then you catch them taking out their phone or they're playing around in the paperwork, or they're not engaged with their client, but they're talking to other people and just being playful or whatever. It could be a lot of things. It doesn't have to be playful. It can be rude. It can be a lot of things. It's everyone else is observing, or they have the opportunity to observe, and it's natural for human beings to find something to keep their mind engaged while they're going through something that can be less stimulating for their mind, like a workout can be less stimulating if they don't have something to keep the connection of their attention. So it can be going through the motions. So the point of this is it's not always who you're with, but who's watching. It's also what are you conditioning yourself for? So in the sense I just did a relationship course with a young man, very impressive young man, by the way. I'm very impressed with this guy. And one of the things that really does impress me about him is his desire to grow and develop and seek answers to the challenges he's going through. Very open and very impressive in that way. Well, we talked about how you do anything for 6 months or more, or what you deal with for 6 months or more, starts to create patterns that become something associated with your character. Doesn't mean that it changes it significantly, but it changes it to a degree. So just things to keep in mind because we do develop ourselves by who we interact with regularly. So if you're disengaged in a trainer situation, then you're going to develop habits of disengagement. The longer you're disengaged, the more likely you are to have habits that help you fill the time. And the relationship sense, like the relationship course I did with this young man, he's been in a challenging relationship for some time, and unfortunately, he's done a lot of giving in that relationship that was taken for granted by his ex partner. And again, he's a very impressive guy. He's very smart. He's very caring too, and you can get people that attach to the care. And if you tolerate a specific behavior for a certain period of time, you don't just remember it. You develop an emotional pattern of behavior that is associated with it. So you don't just remember it cognitively and go, oh yeah, I remember going through that. Or I know I went through something like that and I don't want to go through it again. There's also a package of emotion that has a pattern associated with it as well. And that pattern of association and emotions can follow in an emotional trajectory that has you feel, it can hijack you. It can absolutely change your entire emotional state when certain things are triggering in that way. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the common language in the colloquial sense, the the slang terms or whatever, like that's triggering. Not the biggest fan, but I'll use it for now just because of it. But I have in that conversation discuss the if you're with somebody for a specific period of time and you don't have clarity about how that relationship should go, as far as should it be more casual, should it be something that is not intended to be long term, but just kind of making a practice relationship, if you will. What do you miss when you do that? Right? Like there's other opportunities that will come along. And if you're in that place, which is the honorable place of being true to the relationship, if there's no distinction that you should not, pursue somebody else in it, or that you should, if it's not created, then the practice relationship, it just fills space and time, but you don't have clarity about what kind of relationship that actually is. So it's not always who you're with, but who's watching. Other people will also realize that, you may have a lot of great attributes about you, but the fact you will tolerate somebody else treating you in a way that they themselves wouldn't allow the treatment of, they may see you in less of a light. Like you may not necessarily be the most ideal partner. Now, you could be in that position that you're in the relationship that's a failing relationship and you're tolerating behaviors that typically you wouldn't tolerate or other people definitely wouldn't. And it may be because the emotional bond that's there, that is your desire not to see somebody go through, hardship or significant hardship. I get it. It's a thing that none of us really want to see other people go through significant hardship unless you're, on the antisocial personality disorder spectrums. But I mean, sure, there's plenty of disorders that would have lacking empathy. But if you don't have the awareness of what other people are witnessing and you're tolerating specific behaviors, the longer you tolerate it, the more you build defense mechanisms or acceptance mechanisms for those behaviors that can cause challenges. So with the Maturity Project, we do relationship courses. We do create different types of awareness so that you can better support yourself in your growth because it's all about maturing. Doesn't mean that we avoid hardships because hardships will happen in life and you don't want some concept of a sterile life that doesn't present hardships because hardships are going to happen. You can't create a type of life that won't bring it. And oftentimes hardships are actually the way you perceive the situation because of an attachment versus the way it actually is happening. So it's interesting how that works. So anyway, today's conversation is just simple enough to say, hey, let's take little pieces from something complex and distill it down and say, okay, how about I view it this way? I'm in this relationship with somebody. I don't feel that it's working, but I don't want to end it just yet because of the person would go through a lot of hardship or whatever. We'll stick with that. We'll say the person would go through a hardship and you don't want them to go through it, so you're willing to continue to tolerate behavior that aggravates and aggravates you quite effectively to cause you to be triggered, if you will, or close to it, to where you're just not in a pleased or happy state. Now, I'm not advocating to always be happy. That's not a reality. Aside from possibly a lobotomy, you're really just not going to be able to be happy all the time. I talk about being hooked on happy, and that's something that I do discuss. It's kind of like a drug. What made us happy yesterday, tomorrow we'll need just a little tiny bit more. Eventually it loses that value to us. So, and delusion is typical with people that want to continue to stay in a happy state all the time until you understand exactly what it means to suffer and then surrendering to suffering and then what suffering can bring progress, things like that. So not to go into too far the esoteric and philosophical directions, but just to understand that if you're in a situation where you are regularly conditioning yourself by giving up a little bit of who you are in order to accommodate for another person, other people are witnessing that. And you're learning defense and acceptance mechanisms in order to accommodate for that challenge that's going on. Oftentimes people refer to people like that as being a doormat, just laying down for another person to just do whatever it is that they want and have their way. How do we create a solution to this? Is you create clarity. And the majority of people, I'll give you a simple exercise and I'll give you what the majority of people do. And also, the statement still holds true in this is that the majority of people can't even define what love is as a definition. By definition, what is love? You can pause the video here and write down your own definition of love. I promise you, if you can't define it, it is very unlikely you're going to find it. You're playing lottery. You're waiting for somebody else to show up. And making something that's lasting takes effort and work. Most of us don't know where the work is and how to do work in order to create something more long-lasting and fulfilling. Who knows? You may not actually want lasting and fulfilling at this stage of your life. You may be in the exploration phase that isn't looking for that. There's nothing wrong with it. Where the problem is and the hardship that you would experience and whoever it is that you get involved with is lack of clarity. And without having clarity in multiple different areas, including the 5 sex languages, you can have less than satisfying experiences. So if we want to create better and more desirable experiences, let's create clarity. So define love. And then what type of relationship is it that you want to have? Again, if you don't do these things, the people around you are watching as well. And you will likely have somebody who's interested in you while you're engaged with somebody else. Not saying keep your feelers open or feelers out there. You may very well be in the best place by not pursuing, but I would say definitely create clarity for the person you're engaged with or you're in the relationship with. But if you're not and you're not happy, well, there's a pretty good chance you're teaching people around you that you're likely not going, like that you'll tolerate things that they may find less attractive about you. So, all right. Well, with all of that, let's keep it short and sweet and simple and loving and endearing and joyful and everything else. Everything nice. Sugar and spice. Yeah, let's just say, you know what? We can create anything and everything we want, but first we need to be clear about what we want to create. So if you want to create a more meaningful relationship, well, get clear about what that is. What does it mean? What is a meaningful and desirable relationship for you? I created the relationship course, and what that does, the Maturity Project's relationship course, it just creates a lot of clarity. A hell of a lot of clarity. Now, it takes something to get through it. Last presentation was just slightly over an hour to get through the first time. That's not doing the work. That's just introducing the course. But when the course is introduced, you'll understand why it takes that much time, because it's creating clarity. And if you want to master your experience in relationships in a way that other people at least understand who you are and where you're coming from, and not just you feeling that everyone should understand you, so the common sense concepts also fall into that category. If you want that, you need to do the work. Most of us are willing to do the work because we've experienced enough of the undesirables when it comes to relationships. You just don't know what the work is or where to start or how to set things up to actually create a pattern and a structure that does create something fulfilling. So, created the relationship course for that. Now, what I'm also doing with this is I roll the relationship course out and turn it into something that you yourself can actually partake in. You can sign up and take the course. I am also going to be giving, at no additional cost, the 5 sex languages. And there's a test that goes with it, and then the actual curriculum. So you better understand it because it's its course in itself. I will have a 50-page booklet, or roughly about 50-page booklet for the 5 sex languages, so that you can have access and have a better understanding as well, and what the heck that means, and how to have an incredibly fulfilling experience with your partner or partners. I say partners or partners because in the relationship course, I'm talking to 3 different types of people. One would be the casual relationship. There's casual, long-term, and a power couple is the types of relationships and structures of relationships. That's the levels of relationships. The structures of relationships are celibate, monogamous, and ethical non-monogamy. So those are three types. So when I say with someone else or others, I only teach the ethical side of things. I won't get into the unethical. And if you plan to be in the unethical category, do not take this course because it will make your life worse, harder, challenging. Don't do it. Or become ethical. Don't lie. Don't mislead. So, all right. Well, with that is it for today. If you're interested in that course, or if you would like to take the 5 sex languages test, which is just 10 questions, a little quiz for you, it will let you know your primary and secondary type so that you understand what brings the greatest degree of fulfillment for you. And if you give yourself enough time to do the test, also, it might be desirable to give your partner enough time to take the test as well, so that you can understand what your partner likes. You don't have to have matching sex languages in order to have a fulfilling experience. It's just understanding how to navigate it and care enough that your partner's satisfied. When you understand what those 5 are, I promise you, you can make a wonderful adventure in the bedroom, in or outside of the bedroom for certain types. So, all right, that's it for today. If you're interested in that, shoot us over an email at yourmaturityproject@gmail.com. That is YOUR maturityproject@gmail.com. And we will be happy to get that over to you. We can start a conversation. And if you'd be interested in getting into the relationship course or even something more in depth when it comes to the 5 sex languages, I will be happy to start that conversation. All right. I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears. This is the Maturity Project. Now, share this video with the people in your life that you want to make a meaningful conversation with. The people that it could be your partner, it could be your good friends, whatever your support system is. If you're going to make some changes in your life, it is important to let the people that are your support system understand you're making changes. You don't need to give them the absolute detail, but at least get them to understand you're up to something. So that when stress comes along, which is inevitably going to happen when you make changes, because that's the way it works, you don't want the people that are your support system to try to bring you back to where you were before you started the venture to make those changes. If they don't know you're up to something, they may take you to the bar and invite you out to do things that you said you wouldn't do as frequent or at all, because it goes against the changes you're making. They won't know it, and they're going to try to support you however you used to find satisfaction and support. That's why I say share the video. Don't do this in silence. Don't do this in other people's ignorance. Just don't lean on them in a way that deflates or takes it away from you if they can't participate in a way that supports you any other way. You don't want empathy crabs, people who pull you back into the bucket from which you have came. So share this video with them. Like it. If you haven't earned a subscription yet, please subscribe to the channel if you found any value in this. You'd like to see me fail forward and fail up. That is what we do with the Maturity Project. Myself and my team, we're all about it. We love doing this. It is an interesting process whenever you change the idea from yesterday's failures and create the understanding that primes you for tomorrow's success. It's beautiful, man. So, all right, until next time, let's get up to something. Let's get up to it together. All right. Don't forget, comment in the comment section. I want to hear from you guys. Also, share in the comment section so other people that do engage with the videos see that you yourself are up to something. Declarations are great. You are powerful. I just want you to understand how powerful you actually are and how you can make life work in your way. So, all right. Till next time. We'll catch you on the next one. Like the video. All right. Let's get up to something. Let's get up to it together. All right. Let's go.